What a wild day. 3 pieces of information that we have to go over. A lot happened at the end of the day as well. We're going to go through the basics. We can see the close here on April 2nd was the day that we all got liberated and we really kind of rallied back up to there. This was just really a week or two of just straight up liberation. As we try to lift through that, we can see the Matumbo and then 1-2 down, the undercut and the piercing pattern, which is great. So we undercut, lift, and we pierce through half of that, rally into the close, and now we're down a little bit. But there's a couple of really important things that are going on here, and let's get into this. These videos come out at different times of the day. It's really important that if you want to follow along, you subscribe. 27.5% of you that watch these videos regularly do not subscribe to the channel. Click the subscribe button and all notifications if you want to follow along. Everything that we go over is actionable. Now, if we take a look right here, we have the 200. And as we went through the public live today, which is free, it's public and live, you should attend or at least watch it. What you can see are these levels down here, and that's when the death cross happened. Ooh, it's so scary. And then you rally back to these levels, and that's when the 200 becomes resistance, not the 55. But you still have to clear it. But you're hitting this level. Now, what they did for us is they made our lives so easy from a technical perspective. And as always, we look at everything from the macro, the fundamental, and the technical. And I'm just going to see the invisible stool here because I don't have time to drop that. So if we look here, we try to lift 1-2 down, undercut, holds, and we're trying to hold in here. Your life as a trader doesn't get any easier than just watching the low of this. 56.01, and then we come over here and we see that undercut of 55.96, just enough to shake and bake and then just rip. And you have some really interesting pieces of news here that we should address. The first is the Fed did nothing, and quite frankly, he said nothing. But the way that he said nothing this time, where he's not taking any nonsense from the reporters, you got to give him credit for. Even this Fed statement, usually these are pages and pages. You have a couple statements here that are changed, but that's really it. Although swings in net exports, and this is directly from their website, I would suggest you get it directly from the website to read it instead of you going and grabbing it from Freddie Fingers on Twitter, who's going to tell you what he said. You could read it for yourself and learn. Unemployment rate stabilized at a low level in recent months. Labor market conditions remain solid. Inflation remains somewhat elevated. So inflation is not where they want it. They're not saying that they see any indications that it's going higher, and they like where the labor market is and it remains solid. Really important here. This is their objective. Maximum employment, inflation at 2%. Nothing's changed. The uncertainty is obviously higher, and that's increased the economic outlook higher, but the committee is attentive to the risk on both sides of the dual mandate. That's their dual mandate, employment and inflation. That's their job. The risks of higher unemployment and higher inflation have both risen. This is really important because people are saying stagflation, and I want to go through this. They're saying that the risks of higher unemployment and higher inflation have risen. They're not saying that one is going to be followed by the other. That's super important. They're just saying that the risks have increased. So you might get higher unemployment, you might get higher inflation, you might not get either. But these are independent of one another. They're not saying that they're going to get them both at the same time, even though that would be stagflation and it can happen. Really important distinction there. In support of its goals, committee decided to maintain the target rate where it is. Considering the extent of additional adjustments will be made, dot plot comes out in June. We don't have to worry about a dot plot. Until then, committee carefully assess incoming data, evolving outlook. Committee continues to reduce its holdings in treasury securities. So one of the things is are they going to continue to reduce their exposure? And they are not going to accelerate it, and they are not going to decelerate it. It is what it is. The committee is strongly committed to supporting maximum employment, returning inflation 2%. Same thing they said here. In assessing appropriate stance, the committee will continue to monitor implications of incoming information. The committee would be prepared to adjust the stance if appropriate, take into account a wider range of information. What he's saying here is basically, we're not doing anything until we understand what they're doing. We're not going to take a shot here on doing anything until we understand what's going on with tariffs. This is super important, and it's super important how narrow this was. Now, there are obviously other developments as well, but it's super important for us to get this. The volume high valuation area, valuation low area, and here is your point of control. Super important. So when we clean all this off, I just want to show you a couple of things. If we go to the top of here and we drop this down, from that point, you'll see your value low area, you'll see your point of control, and you'll see the value high. Watch this, because it's super important to watch this area. There's your 200-day moving average. Watch when we add the 55. There's the death cross. Do it with me. Ooh. So when you see us down here, this is not where you short when you get the death cross. You're short, if you wanted to, into the 200, which is resistance. This was your test. You haven't gotten above that. But what the NDX is doing here is you're hitting the 55 over, bouncing, holding, and you have point of control over here. So this is holding. Now, you are seeing the beginning of something else that could hold. After Powell spoke, you had comments today on the stocks. Super important to get this. When we talk about the death cross, which was here, and if you shorted when that happened, that didn't work out very well for you, right? But you kept going over that 200, rejecting. But you see how when that happens, how that does kind of hold a little bit? Isn't that crazy? But again, if you were to short because of the death cross, you're not shorting to 214. Now, you do have this neckline here, and we should talk about it. Left, head, right. So you have a left shoulder, head, right shoulder. And it's really developed. The bigger the development of the right shoulder, the bigger the move is to the downside. So the question is that the move? Well, the way you're supposed to measure these moves, and it's not an exact science, and technical analysis is an art and a skill, but it does have poetic license with it because you don't know what the macro fundamentals are going to be. But it gives you an understanding. So you have a 28% move from there. So frankly, from that point down, you measure 28%. That's going to put you roughly right around that 142 level down here. So you'd look at that and go, well, that puts you right around that area. Well, you kind of got there. And then you bounce. Now, again, it's not exact, but let's say that whole head and shoulders played out and you're retesting the neckline. Okay, that could be the case. But you got some news tonight. Right after Trump officials' eye changes to the Biden's AI chip export rule, right into that 3:30 time frame, and they're saying this was updated 8 days ago. This is super interesting because they're eyeing these changes, and this was the best article that I could find for it, and I'll show you the headline in a sec here. But the article itself explains what they're trying to do. The Trump administration is working on changes in the error rule that would limit global access to AI chips. They're trying to get rid of it, including possible splitting the world into tiers to help determine many semiconductors can obtain these sources. The plans were still under discussion and warned things could change, but in active, there would be a tiered system. Super important to understand that this has been floating out there, and there's more details on this, but they're going to divide up access. And the framework for the artificial intelligence diffusion, rules are called, was issued by the department in January, the week ending after the Biden administration must comply with the restrictions starting on May 15th. What's coming around the corner? Say it with me, May 15th. All right, let's get to it. Now that you know what that rule is and what it does, this is what we're dealing with. Trump to rescind the global chip curbs amid AI restriction debate. Officials are ready to repeal the AI diffusion rule launched by Biden. When's it kick in? May 15th. Him doing this is leading a lot of people, including myself, to believe that they're closer to dealing with China than we think they are. There's no way that he is going to do this. And obviously he's got his meeting with the UAE coming up, but there's no way he's going to do this and give access to this without getting something in return. It's not the way that the guy operated in 1.0. It's not the way the guy's going to operate in 2.0. And we saw this rally immediately on this. Right off the rip, we just saw that absolute buster of a move. I guess you can say buster. People still say buster of a move? God, that sounds old, doesn't it? But you saw that buster of a move right here, up 2.5%. And there we go, off to the races. Obviously, the 800-pound gorilla here is NVIDIA. Now, we're going to have people that have gone from Ukrainian war expert to AI expert to tariff expert to the Biden administration diffusion expert. The bottom line is look at what's actually happening, right? The same people that were regional banking experts and the same people that were office REIT experts are now going to tell us what this rescission means. Look, guys, rescinding means rescinding. It's really that simple. Whether the stock goes up or down on the news, rescinding is rescinding. Doesn't mean he's not going to put it on and put somebody on double secret probation, but it does mean that he is leaning this way. And so once again, what do we have? Upside headline risk. And he kind of stole Powell's thunder today, didn't he? Coming out with this right after the fact. And you had a lot of volume coming into this. So that's not small volume. So you can think anything you want, but 20 million shares in 5 minutes on the video is 20 million shares on the video in 5 minutes. Whether it sticks, whether he makes double secret probation a thing, we just have to get through the next day right now. But to me, this is absolutely huge for a number of reasons. And the first is, if we take a look at that April 9th date right here, this is your first close over that April 9th date since inception, since all this began, the days of liberation. And now we have the pause. So this is our first close over the pause. It's exactly what you want to see. Drop it like it's hot from the top up here, and you can still see that peak VWAP is sitting right there, and that is going to be an issue. That's the next real big hurdle for NVIDIA. Some of the other names are acting a little bit better, and you can just see that anything that's over that April 9th level is going to act a little bit better. But NVIDIA was really in the crosshairs here. I just disclosure, I own both these names, and I've owned them for a while. I started picking at NVIDIA. If you've been following these for a while, down in here and some more in here, I'm just building a long-term position. And then I obviously added more recently. But if I look at this, yeah, it's an issue. But the issue's been that it's been the battering ram of the administration. And quite frankly, even before the past administration, you guys still say battering ram, don't you? And you see the DTL. Now, I don't know that we're going to break that DTL. I don't know that I'm going to get through that peak VWAP. But I do know a couple things. I know that I want to be there in case it happens. I know that I've levered into it enough. And what's crazy about this, and we're going to do this, I do want to do some of this on Saturday. You guys have to start, for those that trade options, let's see where the point of control is from that peak. You haven't flipped that yet. When you flip that, this is going to become like a magnet. That 121, that 121.22, that area up here, you're pretty much there. I don't think you're over yet, but you sat right on it. You're going to want to watch this. Super important to watch this area. But the pricing of options, I mean, I got up in this trade and I was literally able to marry puts to it, being up like $1.50, to essentially just all I could give back is the profit of the option for the next 2 days. It's absolutely crazy for those that know how to trade options and are advanced or intermediate with it. These rallies on NVIDIA and marrying puts behind it to do something like that right now, if you know how to do that kind of stuff, you might want to go and take a look at that. I think it's super important to look at. Now, the Treasury Secretary speaking, but I just want to point this out. Bessent sketched a roadmap of presidential Trump's American First vision. This meeting that he was at, this administration goal is to make it even more appealing for investors like you. The cabinet stated tax cuts, deregulation. So this was done at something that they are now referring to as the Milken Institute Global Conference. Back in the day, there's a really good book called Den of Thieves. It was the first financial book I ever read. It was absolutely fascinating. It got me hooked. Older book, you can still pick it up, but it's on Milken. This used to be called the Predator's Ball, and that didn't go over very well, so now it's called Milken's Institute Global Conference. But speaking at this event, it's literally like a who's who, and this speech here leads me to believe that they are going to implement these things. I've always had my tinfoil hat on about the macro side of this. The administration's goal is to make it more appealing for investors like you that things are going to get depressed so that people can come in and make better deals. That's kind of where my head's been in regards to this, but I don't want to get too tinfoil hat on the limited time that we have today. Maybe one night we'll do a Sunday after dark and get all tinfoil hat. But I think this is super important and it ties in directly with what he did today, and I wanted to point it out. Now, after hours, we have a plethora of things that are moving, from something like SMCI, which is kind of funny considering I bought a bunch of calls yesterday that might actually work out tomorrow. But in all seriousness, the things that I would focus on, the things that really are driving us tomorrow, and it's super interesting to me to watch like Disney not be able to close above the open on such a great call. I find that fascinating. But look at earnings tonight. This is so important. Whenever you have a vacuum, like when Hindenburg left and you start having someone else come in and try to fill that vacuum, it doesn't mean they're going to be as good as the other people. You have a bunch of people that tried to jump on this bandwagon with APP and got a bunch of people stuck in it. Now, if they took their profits good, I would read this report because the whole report stymies around, and their short report, the whole thing stymies around that Meta's getting rid of them or they're breaking Meta's laws. This report was a monster. Whether the shorts are able to crush it or not tomorrow remains to be seen. I would not want to be short this. I was really pretty adamant about in the community, and I try not to let my personal opinion get involved. But the way that ad revenue has been coming out for Google and some of these other companies, it's absolutely crazy. And I would take a look at it. I did not think CVNA was that bad. I'm surprised it is where it is. I actually thought it was fairly decent. It would not surprise me to see this doing exactly what it's doing, which is this tweezer bottom and then lifting from there. And you can see some of these others as well. Arms down, and this was not really very good. And I'll just leave it at that. But on the flip side, I want to go through Google and I want to give it the time that it deserves. This was really bad today. The news is really bad in regards to the antitrust, and that's why it's doing what it's doing. It took me a while to figure it out because people are like, no, it's Apple that's doing this. Apple and their search and it tells more about them than anybody else. This thing's not going down $10 because Apple might add an extension. This thing's not dropping because of that. So the antitrust is pushing through, and they're looking to break it up. That's what the news is. And when you finally got through it all, it took us a while to figure it out. I'm not saying that the Apple news was not a big deal, but if they're going to try to break this up, which it seems like they're leaning that way from some of the stuff that I read today, and that all kind of came out around the same time, and I couldn't figure it out. The idea that Google would drop like this just on Apple, putting an extension on for AI, I actually think it says more about Apple and how far behind they are with Apple Intelligence, that they feel they have to add some kind of AI to their search. I think it's more telling for Apple than anything else. I'm really interested in your comments on that. Anyone has comments on that, please drop it below. Any articles that you think we should reach, or anything that you think about the Apple, Google, or the Google breakup you think I should read about, drop in the comments and I'll cover it in a video. That is it.